WTGS Fox starts in 3, 2, 1.
The third drowning victim's body is found on Hunting Island. Good evening, I'm Lindsay Hausman. The body washed ashore on Hunting Island has been identified as the swimmer who disappeared on Sunday. A beachgoer found the remains of 17-year-old Mike Foma of Pennsylvania around noon. Now, his body washed ashore about 3.5 miles from where he disappeared. He'd been swimming with his uncle and cousin when they were all overcome by strong currents. The bodies of his uncle and cousin were already recovered. Now, 2 boaters were recovered and rescued today after being stranded for about 14 days without power. The Coast Guard got a call this morning about a pleasure boat floating 60 miles southeast of Tybee Island. A search and rescue helicopter picked up the 2 men and took them to the hospital for observation. Their main complaint was dehydration. Now, that pair, of course, lucky to be spotted. Another few days on the water could have spelled disaster. But there are ways to protect yourself. Our Renee LaSalle spoke to the Coast Guard pilot who made that rescue. Joining me now live in the studio with more. Renee.
Yeah, Lindsay, it turns out that a simple battery-powered device can send a signal when you've lost power on the water. That is the sound of rescue.
Showing up on scene and you're rescuing 2 people out of the water.
Coast Guard pilot Clint LeMasters was at the helm Wednesday when a pair of boaters were pulled from the water after 2 weeks floating with no power.
The best thing that you can do is prevent yourself from being in that situation in the first place.
Dan Cook agrees. The Savannah man has been afloat and says you must be prepared.
Anytime you go out in the boat, you want to make sure you have all your safety equipment.
Most boaters hit the water with life vests, flares, fire extinguishers, and plenty of water, but they don't always take a battery-powered VHF radio and an emergency distress GPS. This is just a small example of the battery-powered locators that could be your beacon when you're out to sea. They start at about $100 and could be your only tether to dry land. Lieutenant LeMasters says these radio and GPS devices can make all the difference.
If you get stranded and you're all by yourself in the water, it can be very hard to locate people.
Wednesday's story had a happy ending.
To be at the controls and rescue people was just, I mean, that was it. That was great.
LeMasters had been on dozens of water rescues, but never in the command seat. The successful rescue means he's ready for more.
Chance to wake up and do it again.
Wake up and rescue again is more like it. Now, if you don't have a battery-powered radio or GPS, never fear. There are less technological options. LeMasters suggests creating a float plan detailing when and where you're launching into the water, where you plan to be and for how long, and also when and where you plan to dock. Lindsay, he says leave that plan with a responsible person, and if you don't show up on time, the Coast Guard will at least have some idea of where to search.
Definitely good advice there. Thank you very much, Renee.
Thank you.
A grand jury indicts the man accused of killing Isle of Hope firefighter Wesley Franklin. 26-year-old Brandon Mackey is now charged with felony murder, malice murder, aggravated assault, and armed robbery. Mackey is charged in the shooting death of 21-year-old Wesley Franklin. He was shot and killed during an armed robbery. That happened outside of Deb's Pub and Grub in June of 2012. 2 young girls remain in critical condition tonight after their house caught fire Sunday. Investigators say their dryer sparked that blaze. 3 children were inside the house when the fire broke out. Only one of the little girls was able to get out in time. Firefighters rescued the other 2 girls, who are ages 6 and 13. They were rushed to the hospital. A passerby witnessed the entire situation, and he says what felt like days took only a few minutes to get those little girls out.
The 2 girls came out and they were not burned. They didn't have burns. They didn't have burns on their clothing. They weren't conscious at the time, and what was impressive was how fast those firefighters responded to those kids coming out.
Of course, the family is asking the community not to give monetary donations. It's the family's wish that anyone wanting to provide additional support, that they purchase a small gift card from a retail store like Walmart, Publix, or Kroger. Of course, you can mail those gift cards to Radiant Life. That's at P.O. Box 15575, Savannah, Georgia. Stay Statesboro police are searching for an armed robbery suspect tonight. A Jimmy John's employee was held up while making a sandwich delivery to the Cambridge at Southern Apartments. That happened around 2:30 this morning. The suspect showed a weapon and then demanded money. Police described that suspect as a black male. He was wearing a black hoodie, black pants, and black Nike shoes. Of course, anyone with information is urged to call the Statesboro Police Department. Jeff joining me now, and we saw some spotty rain today, but other than that, of course, it was warm and humid and hot and typical July.
You're right, all that stuff. Some areas did have some rain and storms. Kind of along the coast here, it was relatively quiet throughout the day. Now this evening we've been watching a band of rain and storms pushing from north to south. And over the last hour, just about all of it has been weakening considerably. Let's take a closer look at it right now on our live radar across the area. First, we start off along the coast, and well, we're looking at conditions that are just pretty quiet right now. Any rain that was coming towards us has fallen apart. Now further off towards the west, we've seen rain and storms along I-16. Those have been moving further southwest and weakening. We still have some heavy rain and lightning across parts of Toombs County and heading west. Now part of this is starting to weaken, but it will linger for a while longer as it pushes off towards the southwest. I'll have more on how rain chances are looking as we approach your weekend coming up in just a bit.
Soon, larger ships will be able to access the Harbortown Marina on Hilton Head Island. Our Low Country Bureau Chief Larry Sproul joining me now live in the studio. And Larry, they're talking about deepening that marina, which will definitely mean more jobs and tourism for that area.
You're right, Lindsay. This is big news for the marina in Harbortown. Governor Nikki Haley was one of the many officials on site today. Now, the news to deepen the marina is a huge economic wave for the Low Country. Harbortown Marina just received their permits to dredge the marina. The process is that Harbortown needs 2 permits to deepen the waterway. A state permit has to be approved by the state or DHAC, and a federal permit has to be approved by the Corps of Engineering. Now, these new permits will allow Harbortown to deepen the marina to 8 feet, allowing more and bigger boats to access the waterways.
We need the navigation. We want to welcome the people that are traveling up and down the East Coast back to Harbortown, and we want the slip owners to be able to utilize their investment that they have here in Harbortown and to bring those boats back into the harbor.
Well, this varies from marina to marina. A marina like Harbortown needs to have 8 feet at the low tide condition, and that way you can bring in the large yachts which frequent the intercoastal. The other marinas don't have to reach that kind of depth, but they're going to be dredged depending on the area from 5 to 8 feet.
Now, the next step is to find a qualified dredging firm to do the work, but there is a catch to dredging the marina. They have to do the work between the months of November to April of next year. So, Lindsay, they plan on having everything completed this November.
Larry, that's definitely some good news for Hilton Head and the Low Country. Thank you very much for that report tonight. Well, in other news, the massive Truman Parkway project is heading into the home stretch. Contractors are back on track to finish the final phase by March. Our Rob Macco got an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the progress.
The Georgia Department of Transportation has been working on the Truman Parkway since the 1980s. The project is now in its 5th and final phase. The 2-mile stretch will take the parkway from Whitfield Avenue to Abercorn Street.
Can't wait.
How come?
You clean up all the traffic around here.
I could get to Eisenhower and Duran quicker, and I can get to Abercorn a whole lot faster.
Engineers and contractors from Balfour Beatty began Phase 5 in March 2010. Phase 5 of the Truman Parkway is a $72 million project. Contractors say they're ahead of schedule and under budget. These mile-long twin bridges that run over the Vernon River make up about half of the project's value. Contractors had to build 6 twin bridges, 2 over Whitfield Avenue, 2 over White Bluff Road, and then these giants over the Vernon River. These cranes each weigh 500,000 pounds. Crews had to build platforms for them in the river before constructing the twin bridges. It's an impressive project, and a few residents have been caught trespassing trying to get a closer look. DOT Communications Officer Jill Nagel warns people to stay away from work zones.
It is a dangerous place. Even if there's no activity in the area, it still can be dangerous to anyone that is trespassing in that area.
Contractors say 100,000 vehicles pass through this part of Southside Savannah every day. The final piece of the Truman will ease some of the congestion.
This is something that will help get you from the south side down to the downtown area in half the time.
When finished, there will be new interchanges at Whitfield Avenue, White Bluff Avenue, and Abercorn Street. Rob Macco, WTGS Fox News at 10.
Of course, crews have been working on this project 6 days a week. Again, the final section of the Truman Parkway is scheduled to be completed in March of 2014. Well, for the second time in 2 weeks, thousands of gallons of sewage have spilled on Tybee Island. Now, Tybee Island officials are taking action. Our Cassidy Lance has more tonight.
Atlanta resident Mary Crawley takes a lot of pride in maintaining her Tybee Island vacation home. But right now, a few factors completely out of her control are posing some problems.
I think they probably really needed it. Obviously, we had a leakage.
2 sewage spills in the last 2 weeks alone. Mayor Jason Buelterman says that's why the city decided, instead of risking it might happen again, to go ahead and replace the current sewer line originally installed in 1972.
The plan? To replace about 3,700 linear feet of this old iron pipe with brand new, thickly lined PVC pipe that city officials say will probably last forever.
I think really the biggest impact is going to be on people's, the right-of-way, the city right-of-way in front of people's yards. A lot of people maintain the right-of-way, which extends beyond the street. You know, they landscape and stuff like that, or they have a driveway there.
Which is exactly what Crawley says concerns her.
I have talked to them about to please put our driveway back the way it was, the quality that it was, and I feel sure that they will do that.
And she's just happy the city is responding to the problem.
Just glad to see that Tybee is addressing the leakage problem in an effective way, I hope. And, you know, I'm sure that they will continue to do that as need arises.
We've done a lot of infrastructure work over the last couple of years, and as we have done in the past, we'll do everything we can to mitigate any impacts to residents.
The city expects the project to cost an estimated $200,000, with construction lasting at least another month. On Tybee Island, Cassidy Lance, WTGS Fox News at 10.
The city says they have money in their budget for the project, which will close Jones Avenue through tomorrow. They believe the age of the lines, as well as the excessive rainfall and usage of the lines in the busy summer months, likely contributed to that spill. We also have another Tybee Island advisory to tell you about. The Coastal Health District says the Polk Street Beach, it's under advisory. Tests show a high level of bacteria in the water, which can increase the risk of making swimmers sick. The beach is still open, but they do recommend that you don't swim or wade in the water. Plus, any seafood that is caught from the area should be thoroughly washed and cooked. The next testing date will be July the 18th. Frank joining me now for a first look at sports. Welcome back, sir. And I think I saw a picture of you kissing a chipmunk.
Yeah, it was kind of a spontaneous little surprise. Took my ladies down to Disney World just for a couple quick days. So, you know, before football season gets in full swing, got to go ahead and take a couple days whenever you can get them. That's for sure. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little college football tonight. Several Georgia Southern Eagles, well, they're hauling in preseason All-American honors. We've got that story. Meanwhile, 2 signal callers from the state of South Carolina on a prestigious watch list. We'll go camping out at Armstrong with some young volleyball stars. The Atlanta Braves getting set for the second half of the season. And a former Coastal Empire basketball standout, well, he's headed to the professional ranks. All this and much more coming up a little later in sports.
Very good. We'll see you back here in a few minutes, sir.
Alrighty.
Well, coming up on WTGS Fox News at 10, come one, come many. Job seekers are on the hunt. We head out to the latest job fair in our area. Plus, find out what controversial magazine cover has folks in the Coastal Empire outraged tonight. But before we go, Chrysler is recalling nearly 46,000 Ram trucks. This is because their electronic stability control systems, they may not turn on when the vehicles start. The Ram 1500 4x4 trucks built between June 26, 2012 and February 3rd are involved in that recall. Chrysler says no accidents or injuries have been reported.